From the Alvin and Rosalie Sarachek studio, PBS Kansas presents Kansas Week.
Showdown in Topeka. Lawmakers were back in action, fighting to override the governor's vetoes. We'll break down the battles and the dozens of new laws already on the books. Plus, measles cases are surging. Why health officials say vaccinations are crucial right now. And fear grips southwest Kansas amid claims of immigration raids. Advocates demand answers. It's all ahead. Kansas Week starts now. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jared Cirillo. After adjourning the regular session last week, Kansas lawmakers reconvened for their annual veto session. Lawmakers focused on attempts to override Governor Laura Kelly's vetoes on several controversial bills. Successful overrides occurred on key measures involving tax cuts, election funding, and social policies related to fetal rights and education. This session highlighted significant policy disagreements between the Republican-controlled legislature and the Democratic governor, setting the stage for how these new laws will impact Kansas. Meanwhile, Governor Kelly signed 37 bills into law this week. Some of the highlights include allowing fireworks sales year-round. You'll also see new license plate options on the road, including popular blackout styles. In Wichita, the Fallen Firefighters Memorial is now officially designated as the State Fallen Firefighters Memorial. Other new laws strengthen protections for whistleblowers who report wrongdoing in local government and make it easier for local law enforcement to access the life-saving drug Narcan to combat opioid overdoses. Lots to discuss this week, and all of these latest developments in Topeka. We have this week Wichita Eagle opinion editor Dion Leffler, owner of the Cato Consulting Group, Ben Davis, Sedgwick County Commissioner Stephanie Wise, and Yenny Silva Renteria, the executive director of Wichita-based International Rescue Committee. Thank you all for joining us this week. Lots to talk about here. Dion, I'll start with you. I know you're chomping at the bit. Year-round fireworks, especially in Wichita, has been a controversial issue. There seems to be no middle ground. Either people want to ban them completely or people want to allow them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fight we've had forever. One of the things about this bill is that the cities will still be able to have regulations on when you can use them, but as we know in Wichita, such regulations are never followed by anyone. So, you know, it's going to be a different scenario. I mean, we've had, well, as we all know, the 4th of July in Wichita is kind of like being in a war zone, and so hopefully, you know, people will dial it back a little bit during other periods, but, you know, who knows what's going to happen.
Let me move over to Stephanie Wise, Sedgwick County Commissioner. I don't think you've had a chance to delve into this one yet as a relatively new Sedgwick County Commissioner. But what do you think about fireworks? I mean, it's a controversial issue for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think fireworks are fun. They can also be dangerous. So I think having some order to it's probably a healthy conversation, but fireworks is not something that we've been talking about in the Sedgwick County government space. But as someone that celebrates the 4th of July, I appreciate it on that day. As someone as a mother of younger kids when they were babies, I did not appreciate it off of 4th of July. So it's an interesting thing to focus on. I think there's other issues that are a little bit more pertinent and exciting, but that's something fireworks safety is important, so we need to talk about it.
Ben Davis, I'll move on with blackout license plates. That's another issue that the legislature is actually allowing a lot more personalized license tags this year.
Yeah, I don't know what all the controversy is about. It seems like Kansas is just kind of jumping on the license plate bandwagon, whatever bandwagon that might be, no pun intended. So, I mean, go right ahead, knock yourself out with the black license plates. I thought some of the more interesting bills, those that were vetoed, those that got passed, I was interested very much in the whistleblower protection law. I think that was very interesting. I was glad to see that happen. As a political consultant, I was glad to see that they upped the limit that candidates can raise. I thought the $500 limit for local state candidates was just far too low. Frankly, I'd like to just see them eliminate the limit altogether. There has to be mandatory reporting for transparency purposes. This is a freedom issue. Let people give however much they want, and let the candidates make their case to the public on it. But it was a start to see. There were plenty of other bills in there, some that I thought were very kind of benign and perfunctory, others that I think were really needed.
Another big one was that the veto that was overridden by the governor was the child support payments now provided from conception. Yenny, any thoughts about that?
Before I move into that,
Sure,
I'd
go
like
ahead.
to comment on something that you said, and me being a community member and being in the front sometimes in some supporting some elected officials or candidates. I would say that having a limit definitely will impact those with less resources, which if I decide to run as a member of the community because I know how important it is to have representation, probably I wouldn't be able to raise what somebody else who has more power within the community because of who they associate. So I think that's something that is something to keep in mind, because some of us may not have that luxury of having access to. So having a limit, a reasonable limit, will be more of inclusive of people who can run. So that will be something that I will mention. Related to the other aspect, I do believe that it is important to keep the child support out of unborn, because, and something that it was mentioned, it was because now pro-life, that kind of brings that question, because if I am paying for an unborn, that means that they have constitutional rights. So that's kind of what it's controversial about it, maybe, the way that it can be viewed.
It basically, the way I understand it, was granting personhood to a fetus. Is that correct, Dion?
Yeah, basically it is. And, this was a good idea as far as, if a man gets a woman pregnant, I see no reason why he shouldn't have to pay for some of the prenatal stuff. That makes absolute sense. And frankly, I don't even mind giving a tax credit to a pregnant couple, to help them get on the way to raising their baby. But when you tie it into that the unborn fetus is a human being, you're getting into some really dangerous ground there, because there's just, for some reason, our legislature just cannot accept that 60% of the people in this state don't want an abortion ban. And that was shown in the Value Them Both election, and it's been in the polls, consistently as long as I've been here. So really, it would be better if they just had made a law that said, if you got a woman pregnant, you got to pay.
Ben, any response there?
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to get into Value Them Both. I would argue that that's what that whole vote was about. I think this was smart legislation. That amendment was actually introduced by a Democrat, so let that be known. And I think that a lot of Democrats here, or pro-choicers, are speaking out of both sides of their mouth. They want more men to have responsibility, but yet the legislation's on the table. And I would say this, 60% or not, I would say the people who are on the pro-choice side are just unwilling to recognize the fact that you're having to protect something. You can use whatever nomenclature you want. We can get into the semantics of it, but at the end of the day, what you get is a baby. Right. And this would have been a bill that is going to bring more responsibility to the table from fathers, which I think we absolutely need. Too many of these mothers find themselves alone with no resources, and this is what we've been hearing forever. You start doing this with abortion, and you're going to leave all these women with no resources, and what are you going to do? You say you're pro-life, but yet you're only pro-birth. This was a good step in the right direction that had bipartisan support, and I think it was wrong for the governor to veto that. It had nothing to do with an abortion ban.
One other that I want to give the floor to Stephanie, the Senate Bill 29 removes county authority to prohibit public gatherings to control infectious or contagious diseases. Basically removing, you as a county commissioner, basically removing county authority to have control over public gatherings. Obviously dating back to the pandemic here. Mm-hmm. Tell me your thoughts about that.
I mean, I think that I think that's healthy. I think church needs to happen if people want to get together with family. If we mentioned a concert, everyone knows their responsibility and how to take care of themselves. I think we've been through a pandemic. It was our first time, so I think we did, and people did as best as they could do. Now, citizens have a better view of that. I think government has a better view of that, of how far can government control or overreach into telling us what we can or cannot gather, right? So my mom turned 60 during COVID-19. We didn't even celebrate her birthday. We knew our responsibilities to gather small as a family, but now we know, and I think there's been so much that has been learned since then, that I'm okay with Sedgwick County not having that control over people gathering. So it's interesting that it's coming back up, and here we are talking about, and you're probably going to bring it up, measles. So.
Yeah, we will talk about measles here in a little bit. There is concern and confusion in southwest Kansas. Immigration advocates are sounding the alarm that targeted detainments were happening in towns like Garden City and Liberal, involving multiple law enforcement agencies. Governor Kelly says she was not alerted to these raids. Other officials are offering differing views and accounts of what's actually happening. Cake's Nick Nelson reports.
They are looking for people in the community with a targeted list, and they are definitely going to homes, they're going to businesses, and they are also doing traffic stops for a few of those instances.
Isidro Marino is a community advocate for the Kansas Immigration Coalition, who says immigration detainments are actively happening in southwest Kansas towns like Garden City and Liberal. Marino says he believes these officers are federal, state, and local law enforcement who are conducting the immigration raids.
We've also confirmed there are 2 people that the KBI has also been involved in at least Garden City's immigration operations today with ICE. So some people were also able to identify ICE's collaboration along with some KBI's vest being identifiable in some of the situations.
We contacted the KBI, which told us the agency isn't involved in any immigrations and customs enforcement activity going on in the area. We also contacted both the Garden City Police Department and the Finney County Sheriff's Office to comment on the matter. GCPD tells us in an email, we have had federal law enforcement partners housed in Garden City for over 15 years. The Finney County Sheriff's Office referred us to the Department of Homeland Security. Marino says there's confusion and fear in the area's immigrant communities, and says the federal government should be taking a different approach.
We're jeopardizing their safety because they don't have that legal status while we're conducting ICE operations. So I think we really, to address all the issues together, I think it really just comes back to comprehensive immigration reform and being really empathetic in the way that is done.
Yenny, I'll start with you. The federal government, and this is clearly coming from the new policies of President Trump. The federal government has claimed from day one that these raids are targeting only those who are considered dangerous. Do you think that's the case? Do you agree with that? And
No.
criminals? Okay, tell me why.
And first, I think we need to identify what crime means to the new administration. A crime could be just crossing the border, which is not even a felony. It's a civic crime. So within that, I feel like a lot of people have been targeted because they're undocumented, not because they're criminals. And we have seen that in Southwest Kansas. We have seen that in Wichita. I am actually part of the Kansas Immigration Coalition, and we have been receiving a lot of calls. Today has been a very chaotic day because of the parole ending for Cubans, Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, and people from Haiti. And their parole status is ending April 25th. That means that all of those people that were allowed, because it was proving that they were fleeing from violence from their countries or a certain situation, and they were here legally, now they're not. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands. So now they're gonna be, put up for deportation. So no, the administration is not being only targeting criminals. They are targeting every single member of our community that looks like me.
And we've also seen in the last couple of weeks, especially in at least one high-profile case of a mistake, a serious mistake being made as well.
Yes, this is happening across the United States, and families are in fear. We're receiving calls every single day of families just afraid of doing just the basic. We received a call from one young man who is in high school, and he said, what am I gonna do if my mother is deported? Who's gonna pick up my little sister from elementary school? So this is what we're witnessing with our families. So our community is suffering.
Ben Davis, tell me your thoughts on these immigration
Yeah, I mean,
rates.
look, the Biden administration lied, broke the law, and allowed at least 10, probably in excess of 10 million illegal aliens to cross the border and come into the United States illegally for years. They lied about the protection of the border. They lied about the number of people coming in. They lied about people who were taking advantage of a very specific, very tailored asylum policy to have this broad blanket thing to allow millions more people, hundreds of thousands of more people coming in. This is what President Trump campaigned on. They were unequivocal. They were clear. The borders are, immigrations are, Tom Homan was very, very clear about what this policy would look like. They are prioritizing people, the MS-13 gang and others. There has been one case in New York, and I think the verdict is still out on that in terms of the facts, whether or not we're knowing everything for certain.
Sure.
Part of what the Supreme Court said is that this person is going to come in. They're starting to do more fact-finding on this whole scenario, so we've not heard the last word on this. But the Biden administration caused this chaos. We should not lose track of that. They caused this chaos by allowing at least 10 million illegal aliens to cross the border illegally, harbored here in the United States. President Trump campaigned on this. They're following through on that campaign promise, and they won the popular vote and the Electoral College vote. A majority of Kansans voted for this, and this is what we're seeing.
And
the promises made, promises kept from the Trump administration.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
will
Uni.
definitely disagree with what you're saying. One is because asylum seekers, this is the right of coming to the border and asking to get in. What is wrong right now, our immigration system has been broken for years. So I wouldn't necessarily just blame it in one president. It has been historically.
It's been broken. It's broken for years. But what we saw were low border crossings and exponential rise in border crossings that cannot be denied. We have all the official records. No one has a right to enter this country. An asylum seeker is given a privilege. And I agree with the asylum program as the law has been drafted. I do not agree with how it was abused by the Biden administration. No one has a right to enter this country, especially no one has a right to enter this country illegally. And the Trump administration campaigned on that, and that's the policy that's being enacted right now.
Well, they also campaigned.
Dion, go ahead.
I don't want to live in a country where officials can show up in the middle of the night, snatch you from your home or wherever you are, and send you to an El Salvadoran concentration camp, and you never get out. And you didn't get a hearing, you didn't get a trial, you didn't commit a crime. It's just ridiculous to support that.
You're saying all the people that we've had now on record, child rapists, people who have killed, whatever. Oh, so you're saying that these people don't exist, that they've not committed these crimes?
No, I'm saying that they are a tiny fraction of the people that we're talking about.
Give me a break. We're talking about thousands of people.
We're talking
that have been
about fruit
arrested.
pickers. We're talking about hotel maids.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
Yes.
I
No, we're
did
not.
see-
We're talking over 10 million people entered this country within the last 4
And you're
years.
telling me that all 10 million of those are murderers and rapists
No,
and thieves.
but are they?
That is
have they
ridiculous.
Gone, have they gone after
let
all
me
10
interrupt
million-
here. Let me
10
interrupt
million?
here. Hold
No,
on.
they've not.
Hold on.
We've had thousands being deported, not millions so far. You need to look at the numbers. We're not talking about fruit pickers. A lot of these people will probably self-deport over time. But they are taking a very firm
because
stance
you're
on
making
this.
the country so miserable that nobody wants to come here.
Okay, let me
That's
interject.
not the
I
case
did
at
do
all.
some
There are still
research.
plenty of people trying to come here.
I did see one story out of Bakersfield, California, just within the last couple of days, where these similar raids were happening in the Bakersfield area. They arrested 78 people. They, at the beginning, the reason was we were again, like usual, we were targeting criminals and dangerous people. A group called Cal Matters investigated, and they claimed that out of the 78 people that were arrested and taken and deportation process started, 77 of them actually had no criminal history whatsoever.
But all it took was one. They found the one. They realized that everybody in there had broken the law
But all
and crossing the border
77 people
illegally,
are now-
and they're deporting them. No, but I'm sorry. This is not just a civil crime. This is also under criminal code. They found one person. There were obviously many of them that were here illegally, and so all of them are being deported. This was going to happen. This was always going to be the policy. And again, you can say you don't want to live in a country like this or not. Elections matter. Democracy matters. And democracy won last November, and this is the policy that we have, like it or not.
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
The rule of law
and
matters.
the rule of law
And the
was
rule
not
of
being
law-
followed.
the rule of law is not being followed by your
Understood.
That's
administration.
not true at all.
Okay.
That's not true at all.
Calm down.
The Supreme Court,
Ben, hold
the
on.
Supreme Court has validated the Trump administration, saying they have complete authority to deport these
The
people.
Supreme Court said, go get that guy.
I'll have
One
to leave
guy.
it. No, I'll have to
One
leave it
guy.
at that. I do need to move on, though. We do need
One
to talk.
guy.
We do need to talk about measles cases. Measles cases are still on the rise in Kansas, now reaching 32 confirmed infections. Health officials are pointing to declining vaccination rates in school children across affected counties. Cake's Lily O'Brien explores the concerning trend, the risks involved, and why some parents remain hesitant.
With confirmed cases of measles in more than half a dozen Kansas counties. So is a dip in children receiving vaccines required for school entry. The state of Kansas requires a handful of vaccines for kindergartners to start school, but over the years, vaccination rates have dipped below herd immunity.
That may have been also affected by the distrust and uncertainty with COVID being so novel and everything changing. As religious exemptions have loosened up, the rate of vaccine has been decreasing.
Gray County is one of the southwestern Kansas counties with cases of measles. Between the 2019, 2020, and 2023-2024 academic school years, MMR vaccine rates dropped from 94% to 66%. Sedgwick County's health director Adrian Byrne says the consequences go beyond just the physical symptoms.
21 days is needed to go through 2 cycles of incubation.
Most of the confirmed cases of measles have been in children, so an infection means going almost a month without school. Still, some parents are wary of the shot, like one Sedgwick County mom, Kristen.
I think if you ask one question about it, they're like, you're a crazy anti-vaxxer. I think there's a stigma of it. I think you're not supposed to ask questions. You're just supposed to do what they say.
In a surprising move, longtime vaccine skeptic and Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., took to the social media platform X to encourage people to get the vaccine. He says the most effective way to prevent the spread of measles is the MMR vaccine.
I think that the numbers are telling that it's easy to say that the measles vaccine doesn't work when you don't have outbreaks in areas around the country. But as that has been occurring, the data speaks for itself.
Stephanie Wise, we've been through this before with, the pandemic and personal rights, personal liberties, religious liberties. It's a fine line that we have to think about.
Yeah, I think the focus needs to be on keeping people healthy. And so from the health department standpoint, they are here for community health and making sure that people who are either underinsured or non-insured have access to these vaccinations. I think what we're seeing is that people are really skeptical now. They're looking into things. They don't want to just take any shot that's been recommended, and so they're looking into it. And I think they should be educated, know what they're getting vaccinated on, make that personal choice. But it's important that we have it available and that we're building trust with the public that this is the measles shot specifically is something that is being encouraged, and it does have the historical proof of research and success.
All right.
So.
And our last story today, a Wichita City Council member has been found in violation of the city's ethics code, but he will not face any penalties. The Wichita Ethics Board has ruled Councilman Brandon Johnson acted inappropriately during a January altercation with State Representative Ford Carr at a Topeka bar. The two exchanged heated words over the government's response to massive groundwater contamination in their districts. Though witnesses testified that Carr repeatedly provoked the situation, the board says Johnson failed to de-escalate and used vulgar language. Meanwhile, Carr is under separate scrutiny at the state level. A House committee reviewed allegations of violent rhetoric and behavior, including the bar incident and at a restaurant dispute. The committee deadlocked along party lines, taking no immediate action. Carr defends himself. He's saying cultural differences played a role and denied being the aggressor. A final report on the investigation is still pending. Dion, let me start with you. Ford Carr is no stranger to controversy in the House and over his actions. When does this become a pattern of behavior?
Well, I think it is a pattern of behavior. The question is, does that pattern of behavior rise to the level of like throwing him out of the legislature? And, you know, I'm not prepared to make a judgment on that at this point.
That video that video in the bar is
I was there.
damning. Tell us about it.
I was there. It was very heated. It didn't start instantly. It built up, and there was a lot of words exchanged before it got to the level that everybody sees in the video. It did not have to go that far, and there was an aggressor. There was one that probably should have walked away maybe a little bit sooner, but there was definitely an aggressor there.
Any thoughts here?
Well, I think as elected officials, and with all my respect to everyone, you know, I do feel that sometimes we do have to de-escalate and really think about the public eye, because one is representatives that we look up for, and I'm talking about on both sides of the aisle, because we have seen it on both sides, and I just hope that consequences are fair for everybody involved.
And Ben Davis, I'll give you the last word. You had kind of a reaction there when he claims cultural differences that are...
That's nonsense.
Yeah.
Ford Carr is a race baiter, and he always goes to the race card. He's a menace to his colleagues. He does not represent anything regarding Kansas or the values of this state at all. And it's a real shame that the Kansas Democrat Party is so spineless that they will not condemn his actions, decaucus him, and throw him out.
Yeah.
Didn't you just say whoever gets elected, it's okay?
Okay, fine. I guess, but if we're having brawls, fine. I mean, keep him in there, but he should definitely be condemned by his colleagues. I think it's ridiculous that Henry Helgerson did not press charges. He was physically assaulted.
A lot of people should be condemned by their colleagues.
But
trust
he was physically assaulted by Ford Carr, and then Ford Carr tries to deflect
Quickly.
by playing the race card.
All right. And we'll have to leave it at that. That is a wrap for this week. Thank you so much to Dion Leffler, Ben Davis, Stephanie Wise, and Yenny Silva-Renteria for joining us today. Thanks also to Cake and KSN for sharing their materials with us. I'm Jared Cirillo. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.